Father Abdullah.
How should Muslims look at democracy, and is it correct to refer to democracy as kufr?
Repeat the question again, please.
Initials SF not UK. How should Muslims look at democracy, and is it correct to refer to democracy as kufr?
طيب, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Questions from London with regards to democracy. How should Muslims, alaikum salam to Allah. Ya Allah. How should the Muslims look at democracy? Is it okay to refer to it as kufr? There lies no doubt there are many aspects of democracy which is plain kufr. And I don't think it's permissible for a person to hesitate in stating that it's kufr. And that is, first and foremost, the concept of the legislation. That we can just make up rules and invent laws and make up our own constitution because of what the people say, think, and feel. That's clearly incompatible with the pure teachings of Islam. Secondly, is the concept of majority versus minority. Just because the majority feel or think it's correct and it's okay. That's not Islam. Rather, that can be extremely dangerous. If you say that just because the majority hold a view about something is permissible or the opposite, that's going to be kufr as well. All right? However, and there are other issues as well, of course. All right? Maybe some aspects of democracy are correct and are valid. And unfortunately, some of those values of democracy may be closer to the pure teachings of Islam than other forms of government. Not all, but some, perhaps I said. From that is the concept of just being just. And in certain matters, making people equal. Like we just read. With regards to lineage and things like this. Everyone is equal in this. Knowledge, taqwa. The Prophet ﷺ tells us about the virtue of this person, this descendant specifically. That's one thing. But to say this person's view matters and this one's doesn't matter, and it's an Islamic government, that's a problem. So there's certain things in which the people are equal. And there's certain things in Islam which the people are unequal, but there's always justice. So there are certain aspects, certain colors and shades of democracy which may be Islamically compliant, which may be correct, and unfortunately which may be closer to the pure teachings of the Kitab and Sunnah than what other people promote and propagate. But it doesn't mean that the system as a whole is okay. Everyone understand this? So therefore, democracy and voting and all these different problematic modern day issues, kufr, al-hukm bi ghayri ma anzalallah, etc., living in the time and the place in which we live. People say voting is okay, but that's not okay. Joining the military is not okay, but that's okay. Helping these people, you can't be a police officer, but that's okay. It has to be consistent. And as long as we live in a place as the minority, under the care, funding, and protection of people who do not rule by Allah's law, the Sharia, there are going to be problematic inconsistencies. Tadarub. You're going to have a mixture of things. I can't vote, but I pay taxes. I don't pay taxes, but I vote. I pay taxes, I vote, but I can't join the army. I pay taxes, I vote, I don't join the army, but I support a government that allows the army to do this. And I follow these laws, I take this assistance from the government, but I don't take that assistance from the government. That's a kufar system. Taking my ex-husband or ex-wife to child support or to family court. That's a kufar system. But I'll take the free housing that they give me or the free schooling that they give me. Everyone understand this? I'll take the passport that they give me and this constitutional law, and this is my right. What are we picking and choosing here? Some things you have to pick and choose in for sure. Certain things we don't control. Certain things are above and beyond our reach. No doubt about that. But I'm trying to get something deeper than that. And that the whole system is supposed to be what? Connected. And if there's a glitch here and a shortcoming here, it's going to lead to a glitch and a shortcoming in other areas. So that's one of the problems that we live with, living in these countries, and even in the Muslim lands. It's not just about living as a minority. Even in the Muslim lands, government there, how things are there, the Sharia there. Allah la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Allahumma nabra'u ilayk. Allahumma musta'an.
Initials AAC Fagersta Sweden. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahsanallahu alaykum shaykh. When speaking about people doing bid'ah, some people make statements like, at least they're doing some good.
Atlas, please.
Or as long as they're not making takfir or hurting anyone, they shouldn't be advised and criticized. Could you please shed some light on this issue? This is all for you.
Fagersta, Sweden?
Fagersta.
Fagersta, Sweden. with regards to people who perform bid'ah. And if they're criticized, and then a person says, well, at least they're not doing this, they're not killing people, they're not making takfir, is this okay? Type. To keep things brief and simple, in Islam, bid'ah is haram. All of it. There is no bid'ah hasana in Islam. It is impermissible to innovate practices and acts of devotion. Statement, belief, action. Period. Done. Bid'ah not only is a haram, but it's dispraised, it's blameworthy. And of course, those who perform those innovations will also be blamed and they'll be dispraised. Everyone understand this? And there are different levels of people who make bid'ah. Those who call to it versus those who follow it. Those who introduce it versus those who just blindly follow it. And there are different types of bid'ah. Bid'ah which is kufr akbar. Bid'ah which is kufrun duna kufr. Bid'ah which is a sin. Bid'ah which is called to someone ma khafifa. It's light. Versus bid'ah mughalladha. It's thick bid'ah. It's a severe, major bid'ah. So they're different levels. All right? But all of those bid'ah, all of those innovations are wrong. They're haram. And whoever practices them are blamed. Callers and followers. Everyone understand this? Point number 3. If you point out and clarify that someone has fallen into an innovation, and this practice is an innovation, and this is wrong, and it's not the sunnah, there's nothing wrong with that. And no one is allowed to say, well, at least they're doing this, or they're not doing that. No. It has nothing to do with something being a bid'ah. Last and final step is, or perhaps 2 more steps, is that certain things have to be taken into consideration. The time and the place. You may be in a time in which, or a place in which you're dominated by major innovators. And there's a group of Muslims that have some errors, some mistakes, or even some bid'ah with them, but they're far better than them. And they have some type of sunnah values. So you pointing out, criticizing, refuting them may make things worse. May make things what? Worse. All right, so there is a consideration of that in certain times and in certain places. Last but not least is, please make sure that the bid'ah is actually a bid'ah. And one of the most widespread misconceptions today, not among people who say they're Sufis or this group or that group, but people who say they're following the Salaf, is that they're against the innovations and the people of innovations and people who make innovations and the Salaf who are harsh against the innovators and they boycott the innovators. And oftentimes they boycott people and they're harsh against people who have not fallen into innovations. Person made a mistake, person said something was wrong, he disrespected a scholar, etc. None of those things are what? Bid'ah. It's not a bid'ah, yahi. If it's a mistake and it's right, you're right and he's wrong. With that being proven, of course, that doesn't mean that it's a what? A bid'ah. So you make sure that the thing is actually an innovation. And make sure you have the proper knowledge. And Allah surely knows best.
What is the ruling of the family of the deceased sitting and gathering in a specific place to receive condolences?
Family of the deceased sitting and gathering in a specific place to receive condolences. It shouldn't be done. There should be no special time and place made for that. There are family members who come from out of state or out of town or another country to visit, to come together, spend some days helping each other out. Labas. You go and you visit them, you make condolences with them, that's fine. It's known that they're taking guests right now, labas. But it shouldn't be a thing which is made like some type of specified mourning time. It shouldn't be done. And that's dangerous and it can lead to other dangerous things. You go, you visit them. You bring them food. You tell them, I'm sorry. You send them a text message. You call them. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. Ahsanallahu azak. You make the dua for them without no specific description, time, or place. And this, brothers and sisters, as we've explained, is one of the key ingredients or one of the major factors of innovations. It's takhsis, specifying a time, a place, a hay'ah, a sifa, a description, a manner. And the thing is permissible to be done what? Generally. Do it as you want to. Send condolences as you want. But don't say at this time, in this place, and we're all going to sit around in chairs and welcome and wait for people to come and send condolences. That's a problem. We have to be mindful of that. Wallahu alam. Sheikh Yusuf, hayakallah.
What about condolence register where you go and then you write? They have condolence registers where you
A condolence register? Allahu alam. I don't think that's a specific type of ibadah. Yani, Perhaps they just want to see all the people that came. That's one thing. If you avoid it, you can't lose. You can't lose by staying away from something like that. Wallahu alam.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. My name is AA, Toronto, Canada. What's your advice to younger sisters who don't have father figures or male relatives in their lives, and at times they really crave male attention?
Tayyib. Question is from where?
Toronto, Canada.
Toronto, Canada. Sisters who don't have fathers or father figures and they crave male attention, so on and so forth. First of all, is ask Allah to repair your brokenness. If you're broken and dented and wounded by not being raised by your father was killed, your father was locked up, whatever the reason may be. You weren't raised by your father, or the father that you had was very harsh and mean. He didn't have a lot of compassion and sympathy, so on and so forth, all right? Make dua for Allah to repair that and to fix that wound in your heart. And only Allah can do it. Secondly is, inshallah ta'ala, you have to do your part. When you make that dua, whether that's getting married, whether that's having a son, all right? Or whether that's visiting some of the male family members that you do have in another country or another state or another part of town, that will give you the necessary love and attention that you need. However, if you're a grown woman, then obviously certain things have just passed. You can't turn back the hands of time, all right? And we all know the evil effects of you growing up and not having the necessary attention from your father or your mother, for men and for women. We all know that. And many women, unfortunately, they walk down the wrong path because they weren't given attention by their fathers. And it's some advice that I give to fathers now. Fear Allah. Give your daughter the time that she needs. Give your daughter the attention that she needs. And if not, when she grows up, she goes through puberty, she might get that attention in another way. Through any person that walks down the street that's giving her the most attention. That's well known. That's well known how girls get caught up because they don't have that attention and that time and that special relationship with their fathers, so they go get it from someone in the street, unfortunately. All right? At the end of the day, if you're married, and try your best to talk to your husband, speak to your husband, get therapy from a proper counselor, someone who's qualified, an expert. And you have to forgive, you have to forbear, you have to get it off of your chest and do what you can to fix it now. Whether that's through your husband, if you're not married, you get married. If you're married, try to have a son, try to raise him. You have a daughter, try to make sure that your daughter is connected to her husband or her father. That's my advice. And of course, we all go through things in this worldly life, and a believer never ever loses. As long as he yasbiru wa yahtasib, he's patient, she's patient, and you expect and look forward to the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahu alam.
Next was SH Sheffield, UK. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. What's the correct understanding of the outcome of Salat al-Istikhara? How do we know if we're making the right decision after praying?
Question from Sheffield. Salat al-Istikhara. What's the proper outcome? How do we know we're doing it correctly, etc.? Some scholars say that you go into Salat al-Istikhara with an intention. You go into it with an intention. So there's a sister that you want to marry. You think she's a good sister for you. You've calculated the risks and you want to marry her. You make the istikhara as a final means of protection and guidance. Allah, protect me from it if it's no good for me. Bring it closer to me if it's good for me. Allow me to be pleased with it if Allahumma in kunta ta'alamu anna thumma yusammi. The hadith says, oh Allah, if you know that this thing is good for me, and of course Allah knows, but just speaking to Allah, asking Allah to show me, to manifest it to me, that this thing is good for me in my deen, in my dunya, in this life, etc. All right? So you go into the istikhara with the specific intention. And istikhara is guidance and protection. Everyone understand this? Or you go into the istikhara without an intention. Then of course you yourself have to ask Allah for guidance. And you have to ask people, shura. Ask people who have knowledge, who have experience. Ask people who are your friends. Ask someone who isn't your friend. Ask a stranger about it. Everyone understand this? Seek the shura of someone that you consider to be helpful to you. And then eventually you're going to have to calculate everything and make your own decision. And there's nothing wrong with making istikhara more than once. That's okay to make istikhara what? More than once. What's important is that you make a good wudu, perfect your wudu, you make the 2 rak'ah, and then you make the dua and the supplication. You wait and you be patient. But it doesn't mean that something's going to fall out of the sky. It doesn't mean that the sign is just going to pop right in front of your face. These are things that are unknown and unseen to us. And that is tawakkul. You put your trust in Allah But of course, you have to have something in your cup. Everyone understand this? You have to have something in your cup, meaning I want to marry this sister or I don't want to marry the brother. Let me just make istikhara just to check. And then who knows, I may have a dream. Brother may come to me. This may happen. My father may say this. This sister may say that. Everyone understand this? Wallahu alam.
Kareem K, Columbus, Ohio. May Allah preserve the Sheikh. Is it haram to have a public sit down with a sister with the intention of marrying if no wali is there? And is it wise to tell her that you'll marry again?
طيب. Al-Tukhawi will answer this question. Huh? AQ. طيب. Questions from Columbus. May Allah bless you as well. Is it permissible to have a public sit down with a sister? And if so, is it wise to tell her that you will marry again? طيب. As far as a public sit down without the knowledge of the wali, then the Messenger of Allah ﷺ has warned us against al-khalwa, being secluded. So if you're not secluded, then that hadith does not apply. All right? As far as without the knowledge of the wali, then perhaps that can be dangerous. Perhaps that can have some bad and negative ramifications later on. The wali may become angry, he may become mad. You spoke to my daughter, you saw her without going through me. Or if it's not a person's daughter, this woman is my ward. Why didn't you what? Come to me first. So therefore, you can't get married for no other reason except for what? The fact that you didn't come to me. This is a problem, unfortunately, all right? So at the end of the day, if you don't have to do that, you should avoid that. As far as talking to her without the wali, or without the knowledge of the parent of the wali, then that's a different issue. Meeting her in public, even though it's in public, is not necessarily haram because you're not secluded. As long as the place is public and open, there's no fitna of you and her doing anything wrong, that's one thing. But what happens without the wali knowing, will the wali know later on, will someone spot you, you have to be mindful of those issues. But frankly speaking, it's not khalwa. It's not what? Khalwa. You're not alone, secluded. Everyone understand this? But it can become dangerous. As far as, is it wise to tell her that you will marry again? It depends on you. Are you going to get married again? Or do you just want to just leave that open in case you want to? Many men, maybe most men, they say they don't want to get married again. I can't deal with 2 women or 3 women or 4 women. It's too much money. I can't afford to provide for them. Or it's too much headache, too much stress. It's too much confusion. It's running my resources thin. I can't have clothes in 4 different houses, driving to 4 different houses, remembering birthdays and what? 4 different houses. Everyone understand this? Buying gifts for 4 different houses. I can only do one. I can barely manage what? 1. She's complaining about, you're not spending enough time with me. You're not spending, where you at? Where you at? Where you at? What you doing? What you doing? That's what? 1 woman. So just imagine what? 4 of them saying, calling me, texting me, WhatsApping me, where you at? When you coming home? So many brothers, they have this view and they don't feel that they're good for polygamy. But if you're not like that and you feel that you do want to do it and it's good for you, make sure that that's the case. There's no need to make an argument and a fight and you're not even going to do it. That's the first piece of advice. Piece of advice number 2, what type of sister are you marrying? Is she Sunnah Muslim or cultural Muslim? Is the Sunnah, Kitab and Sunnah in front of her culture? Or culture, then Kitab, and then Sunnah and Ijma? If you're marrying a cultural sister, or if you're a cultural brother, it's a disaster. And if you're marrying a Sunnah sister, it's a different story. Be upfront. I don't plan on having 1 wife. It's the Sunnah of Allah, the Sunnah of His Prophet, and I plan on what? And implementing that to the fullest. All right? So there's nothing wrong with that. We're being clear, we're being public, we're being transparent. There's nothing wrong with that. But just make sure you know what you're doing and make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. If you feel ardent and adamant about marrying another woman and you know that she's going to have a problem with it, then there's no doubt it's best to say it up front. Instead of you get into the marriage and later on it's a huge major tornado when you say, I'm getting married. And she says, divorce, my father's taking me back. We know you shouldn't have married into your dirty, nasty tribe in the first place. The Jahiliyyah comes out now. So we have to be mindful of things like this. Wallahu alam. Any questions here? Sallallahu sallam wa barak ala abdi wa rasuli nabiyina wa imamina Muhammad.